That's hilarious. We are firing on all cylinders tonight.
Let's go.
I'm about to be an angry dad in a second here. If I leave, just know I'm screaming at my children.
Uh-oh.
They're losing their minds right now.
That's a happy thought. We're really rolling into this last home game like in proper form.
So bad, dude.
So are we in better form than the club right now?
50-50, I think.
Okay.
I think it's really close. But at least we're having fun with it. I don't know about them.
Yeah, I can't imagine coming back after that match on whatever late night charter they're on. It was fun.
Well, they stayed till today.
Yeah.
So they didn't fly back last night. Yeah, they stayed till today. The presser's not till tomorrow.
Well, at least they got to see some of that LA traffic, I guess. Hopefully.
Maybe that was a reason that they stayed. Just they didn't want to have to deal with the flight back. I don't know. I'm sure they decided that before the game, though.
Yeah, with the charter flights, we've chartered flights back from the other midweek 9:30 games, I believe.
Yeah, usually they come back late that night. That's usually what they do.
And they're flying into to Lambert, but I'm curious why City flies into Lambert on their chartered flights and not downtown airport like the Blues and Cardinals do.
Is the downtown airport Cahokia?
Yeah.
Okay. I always hear downtown airport, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Cahokia is what you mean.
Yeah, but it's not really in Cahokia either. So
no, that's fair. Yeah, it is closer to downtown than Lambert, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the flight path is right over. I mean, flight path for both is right over my house, but the one to Cahokia is much closer. So whenever I think most of chartered flights from Delta, at least for hockey and baseball teams, are 757s. So they come over pretty low over my house. It's pretty noticeable.
It's interesting.
So that's the only reason why I started tracking this was plane nerd stuff.
You're a flight path guy.
Yep, I definitely am. I have my flight radar.
You track two groups, St. Louis City and Taylor Swift, right? Were you the one that broke that?
Yeah, I'm the one who Elon got so pissed at and shut down.
Nearly had your Twitter account shut down because of it.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. He's not a government aircraft. I don't think that was something he needed to. But that's a whole nother story. Off-season flyover footy.
Seriously, that's kind of what this sounds like. Evening, Chris. Evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. One final flyover before our last home game.
Okay.
Actually, I think this is my last flyover during the season because I'll be gone for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are all here.
It's a farewell.
For a bit. But, of course, I'll make up for it because I think I'm doing a solo Fallout this weekend.
All right. We're all busy.
I don't have any friends. I have a lot of friends tonight. I won't have any friends on Sunday.
Good planning. Right. Good planning, flyover.
Phil, you can get us going. We don't need it.
Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. We are presented by Noble Ice Vineyards. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a full house tonight, and I am so excited for the return of Santiago. We have Stu Holtgren, Matt Baker. My name's Phil Grooms. Again, thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. It's a fun episode. Let's lead off with Matt Baker here because you're going to lose him for a couple of weeks. We're all going to lose him. The United States is going to lose him. You're off on an adventure, right, Matt?
Gallivanting in Europe for a couple of weeks. Yeah, my wife and I are going on a river cruise down the Danube from Czech Republic, Germany, on down to Hungary. So I will be watching that final decision day Minnesota game from the airport in Budapest. But I'm looking forward to talking City with you guys tonight. Not looking forward to recapping this last match, but definitely looking forward to our last home match. I'm excited to get back to City Park. I'm excited for City to let out pent up frustration, to be with friends, and to talk to you guys about it tonight.
No surprise, you know exactly where you'll be when decision day happens. Like the
I've already
time,
planned it
the
out.
place.
Yes. Time difference, I've already got it mapped out.
Good. I'm glad to hear that's figured out. I can rest easy. Santiago's back. Santi, how's it going, man? What's new?
Great. It's been a while. I was traveling for work and also doing other things. So I couldn't make it to fly over footy on Thursday nights for 2 or 3 weeks. But hey, I'm here. It's also gonna be at least a week and a half until I join another podcast. I'm going to Puerto Rico, take advantage of the international break that City doesn't have a game, and just visiting family, and some friends are gonna meet us there. So looking forward to that.
Good planning in general, using that international break. I think that's very smart of both of you. I appreciate that, absolutely. So I hope you both enjoy your amazing vacations. Good choices to both of you. Stu, we'll just be stuck here in the Midwest. I don't know, the weather's good right now, though. It's kind of a good time to be here, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the best time to be in the Midwest. So, Santi, you usually have your Puerto Rico, sojourns in the coldest of the winter months. So, you're missing some nice Midwestern weather right now. No, I'm always happy to be here in the fall and in St. Louis. So, I'm looking forward to talking some more City this week and next week.
Me too. And so, this is a weird night because there was a game last night. Of course, we record this on a Thursday night, just to be clear for those listening on the radio. And so we are all still reeling a little bit from the loss to LAFC the night before as we sit. And it was a 1-0 loss. And we're going to talk about it just really shortly. Matt, if you'd like to lead us off with some thoughts, and we'll all kind of discuss whatever we choose to discuss.
Yeah, I've got lots of thoughts, but we'll keep them concise. The first one is just utter disappointment that this was the first match we failed to register a shot on goal ever. And that was really disheartening because we had rotation, but the rotation was more keeper, backline, defensive midfielder. It was our first choice attack in Klaus, Toyshirt, Hartle, and Alm. Or at least and I think a lot of the fan base's first choice attack with those four. You had Edu Leuven behind them, so you're thinking a lot of the connection will occur between the lines. But what we ended up seeing was Marcel Hartle deep in the midfield. We ended up seeing a lack of ability to progress the ball up the field. And then the first thing I noted, outside of the failure to register a shot on goal, the low XG, the massively high number of passes that we had, it was greater than 500 total passes, which is not good for the style of play that we have. Marcel Hartle, I mentioned, way too deep, way too often. I made a comment on Twitter that he ran a lot. And yes, he did. And it was noteworthy because of where he was running. It's not the concept of him running because his fitness is amazing. He was the one player who was able to basically step off a plane and start playing. So fitness, not an issue for him. It's where and how he was running. And Hackworth even kind of admitted or acknowledged, at least to me post-game, that they have to do a better job of getting the ball to Hartle so he can do his damage in the attacking third, in the attacking half, and not track back trying to find the ball and create something. He noted in his City Voice pod that his scoring boomed at St. Pauli when they taught him to be patient, letting the ball come to him as opposed to seeking it all over the field. And I feel that whether by necessity or what, Hartle got back into those ways. I don't know how much of it had to do with it being JGR's first start, and he was noticeably deeper compared to where Chris Durkin was, I felt, most of the time. And so you didn't have that extension of sorts between the center defensive mid and the attack. Felt JGR's position was a little more compact. I also thought Jay Reed was a little overmatched on the left side. He had started at left back, and he has the quality, no doubt. He's shown flashes of brilliance, but I did feel that he had a little too many turnovers. He couldn't progress the ball himself to get it to Hartle, and so that was a problem in and of itself. Klaus was MIA for large portions, I thought. He was all over the place, but even the passing network map showed just a gathering, just a ton of players in the middle of the field. Klaus, Teuscher, Leuven, JGR, all like really coalesced with Hartle in the middle of the field. That's a problem. I did like Nilsson and Kessler as a center back duo. I thought that was a really strong indication of what could happen if Nilsson's wisdom teeth surgery really pans out and his hamstring problems are fixed. So that was good to see. I thought Jake Nerwinski had a pretty good game, shutting down Denny Bwanga for most of the match, except for when he had his individual brilliance. And Ben Lunt was good in goal, but Ben Lunt was not good in distribution. And one of my takeaways, if not the biggest takeaway, is Ben Lunt's lack of distribution. He had about 6 long ball passes that were accurate, less than half of what Roman Berkey usually does. That was a huge issue to me because we thrive on these long balls from Roman Berkey, the good distribution that allows us to win these 50-50s, win these aerial duels. It's another way for us to offer a progression of the ball in addition to down the wings or through Edu Leuven. We didn't have that at all really against LAFC. And so I think that was a big piece of why Hartle was dropping in the midfield, why we couldn't progress the ball. We didn't have that extra dimension. And that's something that I don't think is going to be a problem going forward because Berkey is our top choice keeper. It just reinforces the importance of what Roman Berkey does on the ball.
All right, now that it pains me that we can't dwell on any. I would love to dwell on every single one of those topics, but Stuart, let's go to you next. You've got a cornucopia of topics from that game that you can touch on. Did any of those speak to you?
Well, I mean, one that interested me that we talked a little bit off air earlier this week when we were discussing lineups was Teukert and availability and his questionable knee and why he was playing and starting 2 matches in a row so soon together. And I'm still a little confused at that. Obviously, you want to put out the strongest lineup, but LAFC away is maybe not going to be to get a win. Call me a pessimist, but I'd rather not aggravate that injury going into the offseason. But I don't know. That was my takeaway.
Yeah,
that he started.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is.
To be honest.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Stu. I completely agree. I think a lot of that makes a lot of sense. I know, Santiago, you had some posts that you were able to kind of gather some thoughts about our history with teams like LAFC, including LAFC. So I didn't know if you wanted to touch on that a little bit or any of those other topics that Matt has brought up.
Yeah, for sure. So LAFC is still winless against them. Only 1 draw and 3 losses. No goals scored. And if you look between LAFC and Seattle, 2 of the best teams in the conference, St. Louis has still to get a win against them in 2 seasons. Only 1 goal to show for, 1 draw against LAFC, and 7 losses. I was looking forward to this game against LAFC just because St. Louis had been doing good things since Leagues Cup, even though it was eliminated from playoffs. These games is when you want to show that you can compete against these top teams. And I thought that scoring or lack of a scoring streak was going to end last night. But yeah, I was disappointed with the lack of offense. Obviously, there was a lot of rotation. As Matt said, not having Berkey was big. But you also have to give Ben Lund a good look just because his contract expires at the end of the season. So you also want to see that. But still, you can see that even though he's a good shot stopper, he doesn't have some of the attributes that Roman Berkey has.
Yeah, and I think to me that was the story is, I said recently on talking to Brendan Weezy on the Big 550 KTRS, which you're listening to right now. There are 3 things that I'd like to see from St. Louis City to really solidify the style of play that Hack is trying to do, like make it good, get a win that is like a statement, something like you were saying there, Santiago, against someone like LAFC, the teams that we haven't been able to conquer, but also to get a lot of new blood in there to kind of implement them, get them the minutes they need to be developing. And I kind of realized that those things are kind of fighting each other. And so just to kind of put a cherry on top of everything you guys said, it's a lot of disappointment A lot of, it was an unfortunate game. I think statistically we could dig into that, but we don't have time. But I think we can all agree it wasn't a great game, but at the same time, we got guys minutes that need it. And so I guess I just want to temper all the feelings and expectations with, do we blame Hackworth? Are we mad at Hackworth? Are we mad at the players? It's hard to say because it's so muddied by the fact that it wasn't a starting lineup, that we got Lunt, the minutes he deserved. We got JGR, some things. So it's just a little muddy based on that. I don't know if that's an excuse. I think we should do one more round. Just really quickly, guys, give us one more thought before we move on to kind of preview Houston. But Matt, let's go back to you here. Anything you want to kind of respond to there?
I think LAFC is a better version of Houston. They both like the ball, and so I think the quality that we saw against LAFC, the opportunity to go against them with a bit of a rotated lineup, actually may be a benefit for us going to Houston, as we'll talk about in just a minute on the preview. We saw the highest quality of this type of play. Houston is very similar in a lot of ways. And so this might have been an opportunity to have a dress rehearsal of sorts where we didn't get the job done against LAFC. And it's frustrating to not have anywhere near the offensive output that we wanted, but it might do us well having learned from this going into Houston.
Stu, a quick thought?
I mean, I guess that hopefully next year we avoid 9:30 midweek games on the West Coast, because I think we're 0 for 4 on them now over 2 seasons. I don't even know if we scored a goal across 4 of them. So
who do we need to petition to make that happen? MLS schedulers, like who do we contact to make this not happen next year? Because I am tired of it too.
I assume Mark Abbott listens to this for this
naturally,
every week on Big 550 KTRS. So this is straight to him.
Yeah, he tunes in every night. Santi, one last thought from you.
So not only Wednesday West Coast games, but all the games against LAFC have been on Wednesday night. We want a weekend game, so hopefully Mark can work on that. But just going back to what we're talking about, Matt mentioned that Klaus was MIA for a large portion of the game, and I would like to see more of Simon Becher. He was doing so well, and when Klaus came back, I was basically relegated to a bench. I would like to see both of them play together and see what they can do. They showed glimpses of it at a previous game.
And Becher had a good game last night when he subbed in.
He did, yeah.
And he was good before Klaus took over his spot. So that's something we can talk about later because it will come up with the Houston conversation. So keep those thoughts in the back of your head. If you're in the chat and you're joining us live, please feel free to ask those questions. We might be able to bring them up a little later. You're listening to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. Again, thanks for joining us, everyone. We're about to preview the Houston Dynamo as they come to St. Louis for the final home game in St. Louis of the MLS regular season, which is unfortunately the end of the season for St. Louis City proper. Matt, why don't you get us started with the way City has looked, as well as getting us into Houston too?
Yeah, we know our form. We're 12th in the West, 7, 12, and 13 record. We have 34 points in 32 games, a minus 13 goal differential. So a lot of this is going to end the season on these kinds of sour notes. 46 goals scored, 59 goals allowed. We've been eliminated from the playoffs, so we're playing for other things beyond that right now. Since Leagues Cup, just to give an idea of the recent form, we're 3-2-2. So it has been a better run of form since Leagues Cup as opposed to what we took into it, even though it's not as drastic of a change, flipping of the switch as we had hoped for. This midweek loss against LAFC comes after a couple wins against SKC and San Jose, for instance. So we're still looking for that quality opponent win, I think, is really what we're trying to hang our hat on, and Houston is a good challenge for that. This is our third match in 8 days, but after that, like Santi mentioned earlier, we've got an international break. So we rested some folks this week. We have an opportunity to really go all out. And honestly, I think there's other things that St. Louis is looking for. For instance, St. Louis hasn't had a clean sheet in MLS plays since San Jose back in July 4th. So there's a massive chip on his shoulder for Roman Berkey. I believe that was Hackworth's first game as interim coach. So I think the players know this kind of thing. They know how long it's been since they've had a truly quality game on both sides of the ball. Coming into this, St. Louis has a fairly healthy team with the rotation that happened on Wednesday. 5 new players: Ben Lunt, Jake Nerwinski, Joachim Nilsson, Jay Reed, and Jake Goodwood-Reich all came in. So there's an opportunity to rotate some of those other players. We wonder, we'll find out on the Friday press conference. As you're listening to this on the Big 550 KTRS, you'll probably already know the status of Chris Durkin and Indiana Vasilev. Those are really the 2 big question marks. Cedric Toyshirt's been nursing a bit of a knee injury. Marcel Hartl hasn't practiced because of a toe. If you were an eagle-eyed viewer of that LAFC game, you would have seen a quick glimpse, maybe 2 seconds, where the camera panned to Marcel Hartl's foot when he was taking a free kick, and there was definitely a tear where one of his toes was poking through. I think that's his toe that was giving him an issue. Not an issue for playing. I think he'll play through that, like you mentioned. So Chris Durkin and Indiana Vasilev are the 2 players with knee and concussion, respectively. Houston is coming into this much better form, but not as consistent, I think, as they want to be going into the playoffs. The Houston Dynamo are 5th in the West with a 14-9-9 record, 51 points compared to our 34. They've played the same amount of games, 32. They have a +10 goal differential, but it's not a big goal-scoring team. 45 goals scored, actually one less than us this season, but just 35 goals allowed. That's 24 less than us. An 8-6-2 record on the road, so this is a pretty good team, whether they're playing at Shell Energy or away. Their recent form, a 2-1 win this midweek against New England, a 1-0 loss at Seattle last weekend, and before that, a 1-0 win at Austin. Since Leagues Cup, they're 4-2-2, so not too much unlike us. Pretty similar record, but they haven't strung together 2 straight wins. That, if you're a betting person or you like those kinds of odds, they've just won against New England, so they're going to be fighting for their first back-to-back win since Leagues Cup. In the 8 games recently since Leagues Cup, Houston has been pretty clinical in preventing goals. They've had 3 clean sheets in this run. They haven't allowed more than 1 goal in any of their 8 games since Leagues Cup. The scoreline for them since then: 0-1, 2-0, 0-0, 4-1, 1-1, 1-0, 0-1, 2-1. So they've been clinical in their ability to prevent goals. One big thing for Houston going into this weekend is the status of Hector Herrera, the absolute best player on their roster, hands down, central midfielder who makes things happen, ties everything together. He may be a game time decision. I haven't seen the latest info, but he picked up a hamstring injury against Real Salt Lake on September 14th, and that was said to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. This weekend puts that at 3 weeks. He hasn't played since then. If he doesn't go, they're a vastly different team. They've been running, for instance, with Coco Carrasquilla dropping into central midfield alongside Artur. So that gives them a little bit of a different look. If you think of what Marcel Hartl's been doing, that's kind of, their version of that with Coco Carrasquilla. The Panamanian international Coco Carrasquilla has 3 goals and 7 assists this year. So when he's in the attack, he's pretty effective, at least in his distribution of the ball. Since losing Ache against RSL, Houston has scored 3 open play goals in 4 games. Coco Carrasquilla has one of those, but this is basically an indication that they have not been a goal scoring threat without Ache as that core part of their offense.
If I'm not mistaken, the Carrasquilla goal was like a banger. It was a really good goal. Yeah. Stu, any thoughts? Longtime St. Louis fan, obviously. So any feelings and thoughts on Houston and the history we've had between us and them, or anything you might be thinking you might see in this game?
I'm always excited to see Steve Clark now back at CITYPARK. Fans had a lot of fun with him earlier this year and last year. You might remember him if you were behind the net. He has a delightful hairstyle. Little, I think rat tail is what we used to call him. I don't know what they're called now. But he's a professional. He's been around forever. When Hector Herrera is injured, I believe he captains, so he might be captaining also this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I mean that's a big part of those defensive numbers. Because you look at the defensive stats, a lot of it to me is pointing to Clark. I think there's a really high save percentage from them, and it's not like they have massive clearances and things like that. You're seeing a lot of goalkeeper work there. And watching New England, I saw some clips. I saw a few, 30 minutes of that game. Dude is hard to beat, so that's going to be something to watch. Santiago, any final thoughts from you on Houston before we do a bunch of more in-depth stats?
Yeah, so this Houston team, it's a team that is winless against City in MLS play. St. Louis beat them at City Park last year, 2 draws. At Houston, obviously, won the most important game between the two teams this year in CONCACAF Champions Cup. But it's still a team that it looks like St. Louis is always able to get good results. And just back to how solid they are on defense. They don't score a lot of goals, and Matt was talking about their score lines. They are just an efficient team. They don't allow a lot of goals and take advantage of the opportunities. And another player that wasn't mentioned is one of the players that they brought during the transfer window, Ezequiel Ponce, Argentinian. He has scored 4 goals in the 8 games he has played. So a player to keep an eye on Saturday night.
Yes, I remember talking extensively about him in the last game that we were prepping for against Houston. He wasn't a problem that day, but we were worried, right? So again, that's a good one to bring up there. Matt, I mean, there's a lot more to dig in here. I love that Santiago brought up that we've done well against them historically.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is like how we match up in our characteristics. So I know you've got the characteristics listed here as you usually do. I'd love to hear some more about that.
I do, yeah. Houston loves to attack down the wings. They create long shot opportunities, so they will play the ball into the box, but they like to create those shots from distance. You mentioned the Karaskia goal. They love to progress the ball using through balls. They are a very talented team in short passing. Got a stat here in a little bit about their short pass efficiency and how well they do that compared to all of MLS. But they're a possession-based team. You know, they lead the league in average possession. They run a 4-2-3-1 with our tours. They're 6. Ache is usually the 8. So they kind of run fairly opposite from City, as far as City being the quickest in their sequence time, the fewest passes per sequence, the most direct speed. Houston is the 4th slowest in sequence time. They have the 4th most passes per sequence, and they are the slowest in direct speed in all of MLS. In overall build-up plays, where you have these sequences that are 10-plus offensive passing sequences, Houston is averaging more than 7 per game compared to St. Louis City. Houston is averaging over 10 sequences where they have 10-plus passes. St. Louis usually has about 3.5 of those per game. And Houston is also 3rd in MLS in those 10-plus passing sequences that end in a shot. So they're pretty effective in these build-ups where they're playing it out of the back, or they work the ball around, ending up taking a shot. And their possession numbers are all over the field. They love to move the ball down the left, like I mentioned, but they have greater than 55-60% possession in the attacking right wing as well. So this is a team that isn't limited to any one part of the field. In fact, the only place that they really don't have a majority of the possession is in their right defensive area and in the opponent's box. You know, those kind of 2 areas where, if you compare it to St. Louis City, that's where we like to possess the ball. And so a lot of this game, I think, is going to be an interesting tactical battle because these teams are so different. And when a team is so different, I think that offers an ability for you to stay within yourself. You know, you don't need to change up. So I view St. Louis as the ability to play the counter, do a lot of things that they really want to do in not holding the ball, sending the ball long, generating set pieces, winning those aerial duels, and just trying to have a bit of a dogfight. You know, like you guys have mentioned, St. Louis has played Houston a lot this season and last. They know a Ben Olsen team. They've played this team plenty of times. They've got a lot of tape on them. And so I think this is going to be a fairly interesting match, not unlike the back few matches of SKC last year, where we had played them 5 times at that point. And so there's tons of tape. There's tons of familiarity. This is the same kind of thing for me, where a lot of it's going to boil down to how John Hackworth is able to get the most out of his players and what they can do to stay within themselves, as opposed to beating Houston at their game. This is a very, and I mentioned it was kind of similar to LAFC. And so I view this not unlike that, where you just need to figure out how you can get the ball into the attacking half and keep the ball there. Looking at pressing numbers is kind of interesting to me. And I know, Phil, I'm skipping around on the notes a little bit, but when you think about the style of play, we know St. Louis is a high pressing team. They don't allow many passes per possession. PPDA, they are the lowest in MLS, indicating the fewest passes they allow before they make a defensive action. Well, Houston's actually pretty low in that as well. And they're not as high of a pressing team, but they don't allow very many passes before they actually make a move on the ball. The biggest difference is the effectiveness of shots that end up after that high press turnover. So St. Louis is in the tops of the league in generating high press turnovers. Houston is actually 23rd in the league. So they don't allow very many passes. And this kind of you kind of have to think through this a little bit to really understand it, because Houston doesn't allow very many passes before they make a defensive action, but they don't press high up the field. They will allow these long balls. They'll allow space between the players. They just don't allow you to string together too many of them. And so it's fascinating to me that while they have the fourth lowest PPDA number, similar to St. Louis, vastly different in how that's employed with the high press. St. Louis having the most high press turnovers, Houston being one of the least in the entire league, St. Louis having the third most shots from those high press turnovers, and Houston having the sixth fewest. So you can kind of get an idea of where the engagement's going to be on the field based on that. And so I really think there's opportunity galore for St. Louis in this one.
Yeah, I know for me personally, when I first started hearing the PPDA stat, I just started thinking, oh, this is a pressing stat. It's not. I love, Matt, you just explained very nicely. You might have had to read between the lines if this is the first time you've heard that stat, but I love that, if you read past the PPDA thought process, there are different ways to keep teams from getting a bunch of passes strung together. And so we'll be able to watch. That's something that you can keep in your head. Stash it away for later. Watch this game. Watch how St. Louis does it versus Houston, the way they do it, because these are, like Matt said, tactical opposites. I wish you guys could see this zoning chart in front of you, because it looks like one fits directly on top of the other as far as how they operate. So Santiago, that was some fun stuff. Any thoughts from you on any of those things, or anything you'd like to see St. Louis do against Houston in this game?
Just go for the game. Hopefully, the best lineup possible is the last home game of the season. Say goodbye to the fans on a high note, but it's gonna be a difficult game. Houston, as Matt mentioned earlier, is fifth in the conference. It still has a chance to get in the top four, which will give it home field advantage in the playoffs. So they will be playing for something. So it's gonna be a difficult game. Hopefully, City will do what it has done when it has played Houston. One thing, although there is a lot of tape and the teams have played each other multiple times this year, the last time was in May. They played twice in February, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then in May. And St. Louis is now kind of a different team, so it'll be an interesting matchup for sure. And hopefully St. Louis can end the season at home with a win, and fans will be happy and excited about next year.
And honestly, that's the thing that I want to see the most out of this. I had questions for us to talk about of what do we really want to see out of City this weekend, kind of knowing that the playoffs aren't a hope, like what should be the expectation? And I think that's going to be a question that a lot of the fan base is going to have to reflect on ahead of this, is what are we watching for outside of just rooting for our team like we always do, no matter what? Are you rooting for the kids to play? Do you want to see more Jay Reed? Do you want to see Jacob Reich out there? Do you want to see Thomas Totland? Do you want to see more of that group? Do you want to see the absolute best that we think we have out there? Give Klaus, Toyshirt, Hartle, Alm, Leuven, all these guys an additional run to see what else we can do beyond LAFC. Do we just want to play spoiler? Do we just want to get a win no matter what? Because me personally, I want to see some kind of preview that we can be more effective, more quality on the ball than what these stats are showing for St. Louis. Because both of these teams, they might be polar opposites in their desire to possess the ball. They might be polar opposites in the way that they press and their engagements on the field, but they're really not dissimilar in how not quality they are with their shots. Non-penalty XG per shot, both teams are below 0.1. Pretty poor in MLS. And that's basically open play XG per shot, trying to get an idea of how the individual quality of your shots are in open play. Both teams are pretty bad, tied for 0.09. We usually say 0.1 is a decent measurement of a quality shot. Shots per 90 in general, St. Louis is fourth highest, Houston is 10th highest, so both teams have a decent amount of volume that they get off. Shots on target per 90, though, both teams are middling. You kind of start to see this downward trend. High volume shots, middling in shots on target per 90, and goals per shots on target. If you take that next step, both teams are near the bottom. Houston averaging 0.27 goals per shots on target, St. Louis 0.26. So about a quarter of their shots on target end up in a goal. Both teams are pretty awful. I don't really care as much about Houston for obvious reasons, but I want to see more out of St. Louis on this. Our reinforcements have come in with high expectations compared to what we saw earlier this season. And to be quite honest, we haven't seen much of it. We've seen glimpses. We've seen Hartle and Toyshirt in particular have a few games here and there where each one of them has their moment. I would love to see them both string it together. I would love to see 3 or 4 goals that involve one of each one of our attackers. Have Klaus be involved, have Alm, string together something, win a ball long off of Berkey, play it to 2 players, and then score a goal in transition. I want to see something that we can say, this is what we have to look forward to in 2025. Not just names, not just Hartle had 3 goal contributions in a game. Toyshirt had 3 goal contributions in a game. I don't want to see this, cherry picking individual players over multiple games. I want to see it all put together. I think this is a really good opportunity, maybe our last best opportunity at home at City Park against this Houston team. Now they're going to be they're a quality team. They're fighting for 4th, like Santiago said, fighting for a top 4 finish. So it's a good test, right? It's another measuring stick. This provides the perfect opportunity after this LAFC performance to not just bounce back, but to really show fans something that they can sink their teeth into that could satisfy them through the offseason to say, this is our hope for 2025.
Stuart, I want to continue that conversation. I think we did lose you for a second, but you're back. Thank you so much for joining us again. But, we have mentioned the possibility that, Santiago said, it's the last game at home. Do we put out the best lineup and just go for it? Matt is looking for a lot of different things there, improvement in the tactical style and solidifying things, getting better in different ways. There's the opinion out there that it's, the last couple games, some guys might need contracts, some guys might need developmental minutes. So there are a lot of different ways we could go in this game, and we haven't gotten too much of an opinion or answer. So I want to give you a clear way to give your opinion here or your thoughts in general about, what should happen in this game from St. Louis.
Yeah, I think we're putting our best lineup out for this one. Last game of the season, home game of the season. You want to win it in front of the fans. There are going to be a lot of questions this offseason on roster spots. I mean, there's a lot. Ostrak and Celio are obviously injured, but how they fit in, Betcher and his loan, that's going to be an interesting one. And all those guys are going to be interesting. I mean, obviously the 2 former ones can't play, but Betcher is going to want to play. He's going to want to, if this is going to be his last game, which I don't think so, for St. Louis City and St. Louis, he's going to want to put a best foot forward.
Betcher's on loan till next June.
Till next summer? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking it was through January of this
Thankfully.
coming 2025. Well, in that case, barring a unfortunate injury, thank you for the correction, Matt. I'm knocking on wood right now. We'll see many more games with him at City Park on that loan. Yeah, might as well just go for it. I think last game to me was the one to be a little more cautious. Santi was talking about you want to grab a scalp on the road. For me,
yeah, kind of like that San Jose game we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that was the kind of game that you don't give it up. But I mean, if you got a point on the road against LAFC, I was going to be happy with that. 3 points against Houston is what I want. I don't want 1 point. I want 3 points. I want the best lineup. And Matt, when you were talking about the connection and interplay, I was thinking about a goal from last year. I think it was Berkey to Leuven, who brought it to the byline and crossed into Klaus against Sporting KC.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that was away at Sporting. And that was just, I'd love to see something like that again. We haven't seen that in quite the same way in a while. So bring it back.
Get Berkey his hockey assist.
There you go.
Last thoughts on this kind of topic here, Santiago. I'd love to hear a little more from you. We've heard a lot from Stu and Matt on that, but let's let you cap it off.
Yeah, no, just an opportunity to close the season at home on a high note. Obviously, it'd be interesting to see our lineup choices, but I want to see the best lineup. I would like to see Simon Betcher getting extended minutes. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say when you do your predictions. But yeah, it's just a little sad that it took a year and a half for us to be talking about a team eliminated from playoffs. But I like what the team has done after the Leagues Cup break. Obviously, a couple of those draws, especially the one against Portland when the team came back from the break, didn't help. But I like what the team has done, and I hope. Obviously, this is not it. The team still has to look at the winter window, solidify a couple of positions, keep improving the team. But I think things are looking good. And what a better way to show that than winning against Houston, a playoff team, something that City hasn't done a lot this year. It did against LA Galaxy, but other than that. The wins were against teams, at least on the Western Conference, teams below the playoff line.
Yeah, we've done a good job of separating ourselves from the poorer teams, I think, so to speak, even above SKC, San Jose. I think we're reflecting pretty well in our standings right now. We just need to prove that next step. So that couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, it's major. It's big. In fact, I think I'm developing a complex that might enter into the beginning of next season. I could see it hanging over me in the offseason. So we'll see how that goes. It'd be nice to get some reassurance in these last couple games here. It's time, everyone. It's time to do our lineups. You're listening to Flyover Footy on the big 550 KTRS. We are, pardon me, we are sponsored by Noble Ice Vineyards. It's been a while since I've tripped over that. This is all going to get edited out. Enjoy this if you're listening live. All right. Like I said, lineup time. Let's start with Matt. You give us the baseline, and we're all going to kind of wiggle around after that with what we think.
My baseline, I think, is the best we have right now, and a combination of that plus a little bit more of what I want to see. I've got Roman Berkey in net, Thomas Totland, Joachim Nilsson, Henry Kessler, Giannis Horn as the back line. I'd love to see Nilsson come back as long as his fitness is there. I've got JGR back in there with Edu Leuven. I missed him in our predicted lineup this past week, and I will never let myself live that down. After having him 2 straight weeks and wanting to see more of him for extended period, I didn't think he had an awful game. And I know he didn't wow a lot of people, but I want to see more of him because he's the player of the future. And I think this is another opportunity to get him out in front of the home crowd. He can complement Leuven well. I think they need to have just more time together, more defined roles. And if you're going to play him at center defensive mid, play him at center defensive mid. So JGR and Leuven in midfield, Alm, Hartle, Toyshirt, and Klaus. I like the 4-2-2-2 look that we can have with that. And I think with Berkey and net, it will complement it a whole lot better with what we can do in distribution. So I want to see more of that. I want to see this top choice lineup. I want to see my version of the top choice lineup because I still think Durkin will be out. I still think Indy may be out, concussion protocol. If he wasn't ready Wednesday, it's going to be tough. So with Durkin out, JGR, otherwise top choice group for me.
A lot packed into that lineup. Santiago, let's go with you next. Let's hear what you think. Maybe you can even clear up some of these decisions Matt has made.
So just a couple of changes to Matt's lineup. I'm putting Kyle Heaver for Nilsson. I just don't know if he can go back-to-back games. And at this point of the season, I wouldn't risk it. As much as he wants to play, I think it's too risky to play back-to-back. And then the other change I have, obviously, I said I want to see Simon Becher. So instead of Rasmus Alm, I want to see Simon Becher, and I will put in that 4-2-2-2. I will put Hartel and Toyshar, and then Klaus and Simon Becher at top.
All right, that's a fun one. Stu, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to go with Berkey, Totland. I would like to see, if he's fit, Nielsen and Kessler. But I think it'll be Hebert for the reasons that, Santi and Matt outlined. Horn and Durkin, if, again, he's fit. If not, JGR was brought here for a reason. Like Matt said, he's 20 years old. Got to give him time to grow. It's a marathon, not a sprint with him. Then Leuven, Alm, Hartle. I think Toyshirt gets the start, and also Klaus. But I could see Becher as well on that one.
Okay, yeah. So a couple of arguments there, disagreements rather. I'm gonna say I just want Lunt again. I don't think he did a bad job, although the distribution is worrisome. So well said there throughout this show. But Lunt, Nerwinski in for a similar reason. He did well, and I think he can just keep going through the end of the season now that the playoffs aren't a thing. Kessler, Nilsson, if he's healthy, well said there, Matt, on the alternatives. Horn, I agree with you guys. I agree with Matt on JGR and Leuven at the double pivot, but I want to see on X, Twitter, I want to see the debate. I don't want to see hate, but I want to see the debate between JGR and Watts. I would love to see some stats thrown out there. I would love to see our listeners come out and put out some interesting, fun conversation about those two, because I think that's the biggest decision for me personally on what Hackworth needs to do throughout the end of the season and what he's aiming to do. If Durkin's healthy, of course, he's in, right? I'm going to say Alm, Hartle, Teukert, and I want Betcher to start. That's the other strong one that I have. Is I think the goals haven't been there for Klaus. He's disappeared a little bit in that last game, and I think we just reward Betcher. He hasn't done anything wrong. He looked really good for Klaus while Klaus was out, and I think we give him the starting role and give Klaus the super sub role back and see how that goes. And then you use that information to choose for the final game. So that's my lineup. I would love to see your guys's on Twitter, on X, and I always enjoy this portion of the conversation. Matt, are you going to remind me the thing that I forget, or you got something?
I'm gonna kickstart that comparison real quick. I do want to make the case that JGR's performance, whether you say it was positive or negative, was a victim of the circumstance of the type of game we played against LAFC. If you compare his work against Akil Watts in the game prior against SKC, Akil Watts had 17 accurate passes in his role in defensive midfielder when he started, 17 of 23. JGR had 35 of 40 accurate passes against LAFC. So we passed the ball just a god awful amount of times, and so there's an inflated number. There's a difference of how they played the entire game, and so that's another reason I want to see JGR again. I know you want to kind of protect him to an extent. You don't want to overexpose him. To Stu's point, develop him appropriately, but I would love to see just another opportunity in a different game state.
Me too. I'm watching that one closely. I wish we could talk more, but we don't have the time. Let's do our predictions and get out of here, everybody. Matt, what do you think?
I'm going to go 1-0 St. Louis. The Houston keeps a low-scoring game. I'm hoping, I'm trying to will it into existence. This clean sheet finally happens, and it happens at home.
Oh, that sounds great. Santi, what do you think?
I was going to say 1-0 too, but to make it interesting, let's go 2-0 City.
Stu?
I'm going to go 2-2 draw on this one.
Oh, wow.
I'm hoping and praying for I'm going to just be different and say 3-0. I want that clean sheet. I'm with you guys.
Wow.
I like it. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We are Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. We are presented by Noble Ice Vineyards. Thank you again for listening and joining us. Catch us on the podcast version where we put in another 30 minutes or so of just fun talk. We get a little bit more specific, sometimes less specific, sometimes more fun, sometimes a little more crazy. It's a lot of fun. So please join us there and check us out in the podcast version. Otherwise, enjoy the night, everyone. Enjoy the final home game of the season. Hope to see you guys around. Bye-bye. Okay.
And if you're watching us on the live stream, bear with us for a minute. We'll be back for the wind down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Guys, I'm not going to stick around for the wind down.
Okay.
We'll have to wait for the off season. Well, I'm going to keep you for the wind down one of these times, Santi. We're going to have you crack open a cerveza. It's going to be a great night.
Next time for sure.
Thanks, man.
All right, see you guys.
Stu, you sticking around for a bit?
Yeah, I'll stick around for a few minutes, but
okay.
I'm also going to be making my way out.
We'll give you first dibs as usual, so make sure you get some fun stuff in. Sound good?
All right.
Cool. See you in a sec.
Yeah, Derek Smith in the chat. Klaus is a key to our offensive success. Betcher can't do what he can. If Klaus is on his game, I'm with you on that. The best of Klaus is better than the best of Betcher that we've seen, but we've seen a lot of good Betcher, and we haven't seen a lot of good Klaus. So the problem is getting him to be that level. The problem is consistency. I think we're seeing a level of consistency out of Betcher. So you could, I mean, scale of 1 to 10, you could say Betcher would be like a 7, 7.5. We've been seeing an 8 for Klaus, but then a bunch of 5s. I just want to see that level of Klaus that we know we can see return consistently. And until we do, it's hard to keep Betcher on the bench in place of him. Other than the fact that he's your DP striker, and you want to keep him out there because you want to get him to find that form. But man, it's tough to make those arguments in the last couple of games of the season where you're not playing for the playoffs and giving the guys who've earned it because of better performances more minutes. I'm always one to say Klaus is not just a goal scorer with his impacts on the team. He does a lot of good, a lot of good off the ball. Probably better than Betcher off the ball, but none of it translates to goals sometimes.
Or we're underappreciating him. That's a possibility.
Underappreciating Betcher or Klaus?
Arguments out there. Right now, I think maybe Klaus would win if we were to argue who is most underappreciated.
Yeah,
possibly.
That's fair.
But I think I just want Betcher to be given the chance to prove it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like right now we're coming off that LAFC match though, and I just feel this isn't the right frame of mind that we need to be in for how to view a lot of our individual players. Like Klaus would have been better served by having Roman Berkey distribute to him. Think of all these times that Berkey distributes. We had a goal last weekend that was scored because Berkey sent a long ball that Klaus tipped over, was able to recover, give to Alm, fed Toy Shirt, I think it was, and we had a goal. Fed Toy Shirt and he fed Alm. Like that sequence was because Berkey distributed and Klaus won the ball. That's kind of when Klaus is most effective. Back to goal maybe, but when he's holding up that line and he's winning those big battles, when he's being physical. He didn't have that opportunity really at all against LAFC. But that we didn't open up the can of worms.
Before that, did he have opportunities? Did he have to?
I thought he did better against SKC.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the physical nature against SKC when he won the ball with his presence.
Yeah.
And then was that the second goal? And then he got it to Alm and Alm crossed it in. And
yep.
Yeah. To Hartle for the goal. I remember his battles with was it Mikel being pretty entertaining. So we'll see.
How many times has he started since he came back?
Klaus?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 4, and then I'm gonna look it up.
It might be less than that. Maybe if it's less than 4, I might be too harsh.
No, it should be more than 4 because I was looking at it.
Yeah. Since the injury, I'm worried it's 2, 3.
I think it was 4.
So I mean that's not bad. How many goals? I wonder. We got to look up his goal count.
Yeah, it was LAFC, Sporting KC, San Jose, Minnesota. Right? He didn't start against New England. Yeah, that's what it was.
So he had Berkey for 3 games as a starter, and he had one assist or 1 MLS assist.
Yeah,
hockey assist. We don't have the data in front of us. That's something we should look at this week if we get to it.
Yeah, I think he was much more effective against SKC and San Jose in particular. But that again goes to the level of quality, right? The level of competition, right? Sporting KC and San Jose is one thing. LAFC the complete opposite. So
yeah, we do a good job of like that was my first point was like it's all muddy, it's hard to tell, and then you've done it multiple times throughout the day as I've gotten more and more negative. So we're balanced. It's working.
We're having a special stream discussion here. Something that's not even going to make the podcast.
I know. I've been noticing it's been good. It's been fun. But we should start. You ready?
I'm ready.
Welcome everyone to the Wind Down.
It's Oktoberfest, boys. Got myself an Urban Chestnut O'Cats.
Stu, you got anything?
Well, right now I'm drinking out of a water bottle that is actually full of water. But Oktoberfest, it wouldn't be Oktoberfest without a baker in the Urban Chestnut Oktoberfest marketing material, which has to be intentional at this point, because it's been 4 years on the run that one of you guys has shown up, one or both.
I think that record's going to be broken this year because we're not actually going to be able to make it because we're going to be in Germany having an Oktoberfest.
Well, there is an Urban Chestnut in Germany.
I know.
So,
hilarious.
I know. Oh man.
Yeah, just wear some of their gear over there, or find a beer of theirs over there somehow, and I think you're locked on for next year.
I will make every attempt.
Yeah.
It was Michelle in the Stein holding this year, though. Shout out to her. That was a good call, Stu. That's fun.
It is a good call. Well, Stu, you're only with us for a little while, and I want to lead off with you. So what are your favorite topics? What would you like to get off your mind before you go to bed tonight?
Oh man, so many things. But no, Mickey Joyner getting a U19 call up. That was a nice thing to see today.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some fairly big names in that roster, but it's not going to be the main tournament, but him getting some just desserts for a great season is nice to see, and long may it continue. You always want to see your guys do well, especially, on national stage. So hopefully he does well, and he gets to travel on the U.S. national or U.S. Soccer Federation's dime to Spain to play against Sweden and Japan.
How cool is that? The U19s are going to face Sweden on October 11th and Japan on October 15th. That's obviously Joyner's first call up with the U.S. I was looking up the stats for City 2 to just see how good of a season he's had for them, because we know his name keeps coming up. We know he's been an absolute star and earned the homegrown contract that he received this year. He's on loan for the entire season for City 2, so he's not an option for City, nor should he be in his development right now. But he has 15 goals, 4 assists in 25 games played, 21 games started. He is the all-time leading goal scorer for St. Louis City 2. Johnny, in a single season, and I'm fairly certain he's in a single season, he's beat Johnny Klein's 2023 performance by 2 goals already. Klein is the all-time leader with 18 goals scored. Joyner has 15. So Joyner's right there. And I know it's City 2 and yes, next pro, but 15 goals scored, 4 assists in 21 games started, 25 games played. That's impressive. This kid is making a name for himself this year, earned every bit of that camp call-up.
Yes, he did. I'm so glad you were able to kind of list some of those stats, but even looking at this list of call-ups, guys, I mean, so many European clubs, and then any MLS player that's on this list is like a household name in the United States. And so Mikhail joining that is, to me, it's a really special moment, and it's something that I hope becomes a staple for St. Louis. And Stu, let's get back to you, because we saw the national team, the senior national team announced as well, and lots of St. Louisans on that list. And I guess I have been kind of, ever since seeing your tweet this morning or yesterday morning about so many St. Louisans on that list, it's just like me dreaming of, gosh, if we could do this with Scott Gallagher, like, have we upped the ante? Like, could we do even better with City? Yes, or maybe not. I don't know. I've been thinking about that all day, but it feels good to have Mackay in the same week we see the senior national teams, St. Louisans, 3 of them, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, and I think to some extent things come in waves slightly, and that kind of the Patrick Schulte and Josh Sargent wave from Scott Gallagher was a golden generation of some sorts, with Kip Keller and Jack Marr. Absolutely fantastic players, and not even at the end of that with Jansen Miller and Daniel Mooney also out there. So
Gravenbacher, right? Or Gravenbach?
Yeah, KG is KG will likely be the last St. Louis FC alumni to make their senior debut. Because he was 17 or 16 when he had a USL Academy contract in 2020, and he's been at Notre Dame since then.
You just dropped some knowledge on me just now. I mean, I have emotions with that statement right there.
Yeah, and so him and Jansen Miller, I'm guessing, probably go in first couple rounds of draft, MLS Super Draft this year. But as far as has City up the ante, I mean, you hope so. Gallagher is obviously great at developing players, and so is Lou Fuse and, JB Marine. I don't want to shortchange the other programs in the area at all. And, of course, IX and dozens of others. St. Louis has a lot of coaches and a lot of players who work hard to develop. And City should be the next step in that with just, if you purely look at it, due to resources.
I think the one thing I want to see from City, though, is consistency in getting their players called up. We've seen volume on the national team. You've got AZ and Indiana Vasilev as having, well, I guess Vasilev was technically youth in the Olympic camp, but AZ had a call up while he was with City to Camp Cupcake in January. And then Makai Joyner is the 8th City Academy product to receive a national team call up, joining Lorenzo Cornelius, Emiliano Chavez, Caden Glover, Miguel Perez, Tyson Pierce, Fritz Vollmer, and Aaron Hurd. I mean, we're already to the point in 2024 where a couple of those names are, I remember when type of things. But they never, we're not seeing multiple call-ups. And so I know that at the youth level, you want to give a bunch of guys different looks. And, there's turnover and different, as you go from the 17s to the 19s and so forth, different players step up, and it's a huge pool that you're drawing from. But I love the volume that we've been able to churn out so far in the club's young history. I just want to see some players get multiple call-ups. And then ultimately, I think the most exciting thing would be to see some of these guys get their call-up to the youth team and then get their men's national team call-up. See that progression. That's, I think, one of the big things I'm looking forward to next. I'm just not sure if anybody that we've seen so far is developing to the point quick enough where they're going to have that happen anytime soon. I can see long-term for sure, guys like Tyson Pierce, Miguel Perez, Caden Glover, Makai Joyner, those kinds of players, if they progress appropriately or as we hope, not even as we expect, but as we hope, then maybe in the future. But I don't think that's right around the corner, personally.
I don't know. I think Cornelius gets pretty consistent call-ups. I mean, he scored in his call-up.
Yeah.
And he's been really impressive in his matches this year. He's had a great year. So I think he'll get another look next time. I think that was the U17s.
I believe so.
They come around. Yeah. So, but I get what you're saying. I mean, initially Aaron Hurd was supposed to be that guy off the bat who was going to get, be our diamond of our new academy system, and just get call up after call up, and his development. And we're talking about kids here, so
it's tough.
Yeah. So,
and Aaron Hurd in particular was that guy who the rumors of his professional path were already laid out there. We heard what was supposed to happen, and then we didn't hear anything.
Yeah. And there could be so many reasons. I mean, he moved from Bethesda, Maryland to Philadelphia, and now to St. Louis. So that's a lot of moving just for soccer. Sometimes kids burn out too, and maybe Aaron has, maybe hasn't. Maybe next year he'll be with Leverkusen after he turns 18 and lighting up.
We'd love to see that too, for sure. Wishing the best for him and all of our players. I think it's interesting. You look at the senior team, and I think there's high expectations because of St. Louis's history with soccer to an extent. But I think we know what St. Louis is going to be. We look at the salaries, we look at the style of play and all those kinds of things, and we know what St. Louis is going to be long term. And I think expectations are tempered there. What expectations are not tempered, and I'm just curious how you feel about this, Stu. Call me wrong, call me right. maybe try to temper everyone else's expectations. But the fact that St. Louis it has a proven, moving quality players from the bottom to the top of the national team consistently for 100 years now, basically. And, or close to 100 years. Sorry, that was exaggerated. But that to me is like first team expectations are not a big deal, but there are massive expectations for the national team. Or maybe there should be, maybe there shouldn't be. I don't know what you think about that, Stu, but it exists, don't you think?
Yeah, and actually it's been over 100 years, 1917.
Thank you. I wasn't exaggerating.
Nice.
Very first U.S. men's national team matches. I think that was U.S. versus Sweden. There were St. Louisans on the roster.
Thank God you're here. That's so good.
I love those knowledge drops.
We can have Dave Lang fact check me on that, but I'm fairly certain in the very first U.S. men's national team match.
There it is.
Yeah, they had St. Louisans, 2 or 3. Well, even if it was just one, you can say we were there from the beginning. The history's there. I don't think this is going to dry up as a hotbed. It didn't when we didn't have any professional clubs. And then, we've had off and on professional outdoor soccer clubs since 2010 here. And it's maybe picked up a little bit. And also cities and MLS Academy, they're going to draw kids from a little bit farther away than, Gallagher had some guys coming from as far as like Wyoming sometimes. So parents are also crazy what they'll do for their kids. And if they're quality, if you're good enough, you should play. And City hopefully will be able to mold those kids and the next generation of St. Louis kids into superstars. I was actually at Tower Grove Park tonight, and one of the things I love about St. Louis is there's been an influx of a lot of immigrant families in my neck of the woods, and there are a bunch of kids playing soccer just around the playground at Tower Grove Park. And I was like, yeah, maybe one of these guys will be on a City Academy team in 5 or 6 years, and how cool would that be?
I've got 1916, Matt Diedrichsen. Shout out as the first player that I see from Dave Lang's book, Soccer Made in St. Louis, as a St. Louisan on the U.S. men's national team. 1916.
Right. So it was 1 and it was 1916. So my
it could be these
off.
are in alphabetical order, so I could be missing one, but that's the first one that I see, 1916.
Yeah, that sounds right for the very first U.S. men's national team. They did, I think, a tour.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a St. Louis team that played in Sweden, but as far as the national team call-up, yeah.
I mean, how amazing that book, everyone needs to own it. Matt, we had a statement, and Matt fact-checked it live with this book. And it's undeniably helpful, undeniably correct as well. Dave Lang, good work, sir.
I mean, the appendix is just a stat master list. It's so fantastic.
Good. Any other thoughts, Stu? Anything else you want to bring up?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to have to drop off here, guys, but I'm interested to hear what you guys are thinking about. And no, Chris, I don't go to every match anymore. I wish I could.
He's been going to matches since 1916.
Yeah, I'm a soccer vampire. I suck all the joy out of some of the fans there and live off of it another few years.
Feed off of it. Good talking with you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Good night, guys.
Where you want to go, Matt? You want to talk about the national team? Should we hit up some questions? What do you think?
Yeah, let's. I want to talk about City too, but let's hit up some questions. Let's go rapid fire with some of these questions. We've been getting a pretty good clip in our stream. I want to go back to the very beginning. Daniel Guevara, what positions do you guys want to see us upgrade this winter? And so let's rapid fire these because I think this is a fun little segment.
I agree. I like rapid fire. Let's do this.
Yeah, personally, I would say center back, depth at center mid, And then I would love to see a striker push Klaus and Betcher. I think we need another striker. So center, that spine kind of right there. Center back is a priority to me. Center mid for depth, and then somebody else to push. But with Toy Shirt and Hartle in, I have my doubts about the attack. But center back, let's go with that.
Yeah, so if you're going to choose center back, I do think I would say another 6 in case Durkin gets hurt would be like a really high quality one. But I mean, the scary thing is you add someone, you lose development of another player. So I would hate for JGR to lose his development based on just getting someone new. I've felt bad for Wenzel, already with JGR coming in.
That's the tough thing is you have these players that you need to give chances to. JGR, Michael Wenzel, both center backs. JGR can play center defensive mid as well. So there's this balancing act of the top choice lineup that we have now with Durkin in there. Do you feel confident as that being our best choice? You give these guys a chance to grow. They do need chances to grow. But my thing is, if you bring on a high quality center back, then that gives you a chance to actually do meaningful rotation and not just rotate when you have a midweek match. But I'm saying like legitimately play guys 3 out of 4 games. Let somebody join in. Maybe they earn a spot and suddenly they're playing 3 out of 4 games. That's how you build. That's how you get that next high level is you give guys a chance to rotate and you do the rotation even if you don't have to. You just rotate because other guys have earned it in training and you don't have to worry about a drop off in quality. That's where we need to be next year. And I think upgrading in either of those positions doesn't have to preclude the growth and development, because if you believe that guys are of the same level and you're not going to get a drop off, then suddenly it's just a rest so that you can withstand the rigors of the season.
Yeah, I'm typically, especially at the center back position, I'm kind of anti too much rotation. But point taken. I'm not going to argue too much with you. But the other one is like winger. If Alm, I'm thinking of like people who get hurt a lot, basically.
Sure.
So a winger that if Alm is hurt, he can take over at that level or even beat Alm and have Alm come in as a super sub. I'd love to see that because let's say Celio's in next year. Let's make him like super sub, the second or third guy in. Yeah, that's it. Next question.
Next question. I think we got to scroll down just a little bit.
Sorry, I haven't caught up to where you are yet.
Let's go with.
I'm there now.
Let's go with any regrets with some of the players who have exited. Parker, Sam, AZ, Dewar were named, but in general, any regrets? You go first.
Regrets. Yes. What could have been if Hackworth had Dewar from the start? That's
what could have been
all the time.
If Hackworth had AZ from the start.
Maybe.
Because, I mean, AZ is one of those players that I feel Hack had scouted with Lutz since he was with Minnesota United 2. Cardinal has been in the mix with that the whole time, but I always wonder if there's something there with the Sam AZ thing. That's been a hot topic, so you never know. What if Sam hadn't been here? What if AZ hadn't been here and you had one or the other of those players? Would something have been different? I haven't been impressed with Sam in Philly from the time he's been. AZ hasn't had a ton of time to play in Columbus, but he's had a goal scored. I just think there was so much more promise with AZ in particular after that national team call up that things just fell off the map with him at the beginning of the year. And so that's a regret for me. If I had to pick of those 4 players, I regret that we couldn't do more with AZ. I think he had the potential to be our center attacking mid of the future.
I'm going to beat, not beat, but I'm sorry, but there's one that I think is even better than all of those, in my opinion, is Jensen has left us and he's been scoring every 3rd or 4th game.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me to watch because now that we know that there's been some funny business going on with players and coaches.
Yeah.
Like if that was a casualty of a coach situation, I think we lost a good one there, because you look at Betcher's record in Denmark versus what he's done here. He's gotten better here, right? So is Denmark more difficult? We look at what Dewar has done since leaving here. He's been fine. He was good before, right?
He's been stringing together some quality games. Like, if you look at FOTMOB, he's been doing well. He's been a consistent starter in Denmark for Randers FC. He's had multiple games of greater than a 7.0 on FOTMOB. I mean, he's had a good performance, and so it seems like there's something to be said for the acclimation, the getting used to the foreign country thing. I can't help but be concerned about JGR in that regard. Bringing players from, the Germans have, and the Middle Europeans, not the Scandinavians, but the Middle Europeans seem to have acclimated very well. Central Europeans, I don't know why I said middle, but it's those other regions, I think, that you're questioning. And you do have Alm and Nilsson who have been fine. So this isn't this isn't a zero-sum game type of a thing. But I do wonder about those kinds of things. Is it an individual player issue in that regard? Jensen, I think, went back on loan, not just for the opportunity to play, but I think there was something there similar to Dewar. But is it also something about the club in regards to getting the most out of those players, their ability to help the players acclimate appropriately?
I hope you guys heard Matt put in the option that it wasn't necessarily a coach player thing, that there was also the acclimation thing, right? Like, don't leave this episode thinking we're blaming Carnell for everything. That's not what we were saying at all. It could be either one of those. It's just like we're living in a hindsight world and things are the way they are. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, and so one of the things too in that note is I guess you could lump Carnell into that question of any regrets, right? And so this is a good time to remind folks of Lutz's philosophy with head coaches. The head coach is designed to take the organizational philosophy and implement it on the field with the players, get the most out of the players that the sporting director has given that player or given that coach, and implement the philosophy that the organization has. That's the German style. That's what Lutz has brought here. So Bradley Carnell's job, now John Hackworth's job, is to take the players Lutz has given him, take the organizational philosophy that Lutz and kind of Hackworth have developed as the director of coaching, now technical director, now interim head coach, and implement that on the field. And so that was Carnell's job. And it was the losing streak. It was the disappointing loss against Vancouver as the last straw that was the nail in the coffin for Carnell. It wasn't necessarily his ability to make the players cohesive, because we being St. Louis City, they chose Bradley Carnell over Sam and AZ in a lot of ways. That's going to be one of the things we deep dive in at the end of the season. So I do think that the injuries happen, and that was probably one of those just things that you can't fix, and Lutz has cited that multiple times. So I regret what happened with Bradley Carnell, because I know from last year that he was able to get the most out of the players. There's a lot of depth to that topic, so don't think it's just surface level. He was successful last year. That's not my intention. There's a lot of, you have to find another way to play. People figured out our style. Ultimately, that head coach implements what the sporting director gives him and what the organization's philosophy is.
I look forward to covering that extensively once.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the off season a lot. I look forward to getting into those different topics of like individual things that went wrong this season, or what if
all the options, all the do we blame this? Do we blame this? Do we blame this? We're going to get them all out on the table. We'll not pick one either. We're just going to throw them all out there for you guys to kind of decide for yourself.
We'll pick at that thread a lot, but let's move on to the next question.
I got one for you, Matt, because you did answer it in the chat, but I want you to take this one. I'm not even going to give an answer. Omar Cancel Rios says, under MLS rules, can City restructure Klaus's contract to remove his DP tag? Implications to this question, right, Matt? Answer.
The answer is no. Klaus is on a non-negotiable designated player contract. The way MLS works, designated player contracts, is you sign the player, and the DP status is based on the transfer fee and the average annual salary. And so Klaus's average annual salary plus his amortized transfer fee over the life of his contract equals greater than the max TAM player. So the max salary budget charge of, it's like $671,000 or so, plus $1 million on top of that for TAM, that's max TAM. So what Berkey makes right now is technically max TAM, even though Berkey is classified as a DP. We can buy Berkey down. Klaus's exceeds that because you amortize it over the length of the contract. Klaus has one fewer seasons on his contract than Edu Leuven, and Edu Leuven had a lower transfer fee. That's why Leuven was able to be bought down. His transfer fee plus salary was less than that overall amount, and so he could be bought down. Klaus's is above. So for the length of Klaus's current contract, which goes until... Klaus's contract goes until 2025. He has an option for 26, but it goes until 2025. He cannot be bought down. If he signs a new contract after that, all bets are off. But through 2025, he will be a DP for St. Louis as long as he is still a member of the team.
Here's like kind of a passing half thought, but it's gonna be hard to do this one quickly. But let's try. David Riley says, do they want to press or not is the question going forward. It's not a well-formed question, but it is a question on all of our minds to some extent, I think.
We could make that one a deep question, that's for sure. Do we want to keep pressing? That's the question.
I'm going to improve the question. I mean, it's a good question because it's like, it seems like we're in between a bunch of different styles in different phases of the game. Are we good with that? Do we want to focus on pressing? Do we want to focus on improving different styles in different phases of the game? Like, seems like what Hackworth wants to do.
Well, I'll go back to the stats that we had from the first half of the show, that there has been a noticeable change in the average height of defensive actions since John Hackworth took over. It's been a little up and down, and we look at meters from our own goal where we engage.
And before you go too far on that, but like Hackworth has actually addressed that as well in the questions, because you guys do a good job at the pressers.
Yeah.
And he has said like game script has gone out the window because of what has happened in these games. So that's important to keep in mind. But I've been really interested in what you were about to say too. I just wanted to frame it a little bit.
So Hackworth's been more flexible, is what you're trying to say, than Bradley Carnell really was.
Ooh, I wasn't saying that, but I like that you.
I was trying to read between the lines.
No, I'm just trying to say that the stats you're about to give are a little bit skewed, even away from what Hackworth wants because of game situations.
That's fair, but I think
remember he was like, we were meant to press this game.
Yeah,
we got an early lead, and then we didn't need to press anymore. We didn't. That's part of the question too. Is like, should we have kept pressing? Carnell would have, and there's a difference that you're about to tell us. Yeah.
Well, he has voiced frustration, and he wanted them to press more. But we're talking about, if you view a soccer field, which is about 120 yards or so in length, we're looking at the average height of defensive actions for when you usually engage the ball. So this plays directly into PPDA of how high up the field, the high turnovers that you get in the opposition third. The average height of City's defensive actions is not just in our own half, but it's in our own third in a lot of ways. It's getting into that sub 40 meters from our own goal. And we've seen a lot of that against LAFC, against SKC, against San Jose. We've been more willing to let them move up. And so if you watch the plays develop, if you watch us without the ball, you're seeing more times under John Hackworth that Klaus or Betcher or Hartle or Teuscher, especially when we aren't behind, they're more willing to let the opposing team play out and engage around midfield. And so it's more similar to a mid-block in that regard, which does get outside of the high pressing nature that St. Louis has typically said is their bread and butter. And what Hackworth even says during these times, that he wants to see them pressing more. And that's where I think you get this notion of St. Louis letting off the gas. If they're up by a goal or two, they'll let the ball be played out. And that's when they can kind of lose control of the situation. If they're not making the opposition uncomfortable, because last year we made such a big point, even earlier this year, we made such a big point about the push points and how it was Klaus, or last year was Gioacchini, or Betcher even later on this year, who was initiating the press. And when those players initiate the press, watch what happens for all of the other players. You get Hartle and Teuscher were doing it in this past game, and you could tell they were frustrated by the fact that they had to do it. Hartle at one point late in this LAFC game was just basically sprinting straight past the strikers towards goal, trying to just make something happen. So they were getting outside of themselves in how everything coalesced from the point of press beyond, underneath of it. What should happen for a quality St. Louis press, and we've seen it before, is you'll get Klaus push up and he'll press the keeper or he'll press a center back. Once he does that, everybody else has a role. whether you move into space to try and block the pass between the center back and the fullback, or you move into the defensive midfielder and try to take them out of the equation, everybody has a role. And so you move as one based on who's pressing. And that works really well a lot of the times when you're confident and when you're doing it very high up. That's how St. Louis is able to accrue so many high press turnovers. But we haven't seen that lately, I feel. And a game script has played into it, yeah. But you're getting a little bit more of this willingness to have the center backs play into the defensive midfield, play up to midfield through the wings, and you engaged in the overloads on the wings at midfield. And so you're already kind of ceding about a third of the field compared to where you might really want to. And so you're allowing them to, if they beat those overloads or if they beat that press that's occurring at midfield, they don't have very much left of the field to go before they're suddenly in the final third. And I think that's where these PPDA numbers and that's where this press conversation ultimately goes, is St. Louis can't be the nature of running in that regard. They can't be a high press team all of the time, but I think they need to be more effective in when they're choosing to do it. They need to get back to that point of working together as one more consistently.
So well said. First of all, I hear what you're saying there. But I think to get to the heart of this question, at least the version of the question I was kind of asking is, first of all, I just want to say, like, maybe, I don't know if it doesn't seem like anyone's upset with the way Hackworth has been, putting the style forward. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Carnell had a very extreme version and we saw the good and bad of that. Hackworth has seems to me multifaceted. And so you're saying you wish that we would press more harshly like Carnell did to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know to what extent you're asking for, but you're asking for more of that, it seems like. Whereas it seems like no one's upset with Hackworth's way of doing it, even though it's multifaceted, even though it's further down the field. So I'm interested, like, we kind of need to read Lutz's mind,
well,
to some degree, to figure out, like, is that fine? Is that a way that we would go forward next year if Hack is the coach, or even if someone else is the coach? Or, are we going to see, because I agree that, like, I would love to see more intensity in those moments. And I would like to see more decisiveness in those moments. I don't care if it's high up the field or not. I just want to make darn sure that once we do go for it, it's Carnell intensity, because Carnell had them going so well, especially in the first half of the first season. I would like to see that intensity, but maybe with more practical implementation that Hackworth brings, because like you said, you can't press a full 90. Mm-hmm. And honestly, yes, they're further down the field, but it's so compact because there's less room with more players in smaller amount of spaces. So it's both, right?
It is.
You can pressure them high with wide open spaces, and if it doesn't work, that's really scary. Whereas the opposite, right? A lot of guys in a small amount of space, easier to intercept. If you turn it over, if something goes wrong, it's less scary because everyone's right there. And there's good and bad to both. And I didn't want to say that you're wrong. I just wanted to argue the other side.
But you wanted to see if I could be wrong. But no, what I think it is, though,
competitive. We like to win. We like to make a point.
But think about the back half of this. And for clarification, I think it was David Riley who asked this, and it was in reference to the Klaus versus Betcher debate we were having offline in between the wind down and the KTRS portion of who our best striker is. I will posit that ultimately the thing that impacts both of these ways of pressing, whether you're looking at a mid block or engaging near midfield, or if you're all out pressing near the goal and center backs, the thing that matters is our back line and our defensive midfield areas. Because I remember, or at least my brain is wired to remember, when we were doing those all out presses and we were stretching ourselves more thin, it was kind of like setting an offside trap. And that's how we were being beaten in transition, is if teams got outside of us and they were able to beat this high press, we were spread so vertically and we had little numbers back. And so we were relying on our center backs, or one center back and one fullback, depending on how we were kind of organizing our press to handle that transition counterattack. So when they played the ball through us, long or on the ground, that was an issue. It hasn't been as big of an issue lately. We're allowing goals in other avenues, so we're not doing well holistically. But if you look at how we're allowing the goals, I feel it's not in this transition where you're having Hebert or Nilsson or Kessler or one of our fullbacks being beaten in transition like we had been fairly regularly under the Carnell press or under the all-out press. And so I would posit that the quality of our center backs, the quality of our back line in general, both with vision, with awareness, and overall speed and talent, plays into that ability to press high and not allow goals as much as anything else. So I look to that, and that kind of goes to reinforcing the quality of our center backs in this specific system. If Lutz, it all comes down to Lutz. It really does. And if Lutz wants to continue this high pressing and the gegenpressing that he had Carnell employ, he needs to make sure that he has quality center backs to the depth that they can cover for an injury to Nilsson, for instance, that can handle that. You can't have a quality drop-off at center back in that kind of a system and expect it to still be successful.
Yeah, and to actually give my actual opinions on it, I'm fine with any way it's implemented. I do think the press needs to be vital to St. Louis's identity in some form or fashion. I don't care. I can't find the quote I've been looking for, but Pochettino said something incredible. If you guys don't know, he's the new USMNT coach, former Chelsea coach, lots of amazing club coaches, and he's taken over. He's a smart guy. He's good at his job, and he's kind of, everyone's asking him all these tactical questions, like what formation, what players, and he kind of like takes a step back at one point and just says, we're going to be good at counter pressing. We're going to give these guys a hunger to intensely counter press. I'm rephrasing because I couldn't find the exact quote, but he's like, he wants the intensity to be ridiculous in counter pressing. And so he's picking a thing that is vital in modern soccer that works. And it's not necessarily that he's like, we're going to be the best players. He's saying we're going to be so good at this that it's going to win us games. And Carnell was like that to a point. But I think the point for me is it doesn't matter what coach we have. It doesn't matter what system we run. As long as there's an identity of intensity in the use of the press, in whatever phase of the game you choose it needs to be ridiculous. It needs to be inspiring. It needs to be fighting for your teammate kind of stuff. So I think that can be implemented with that mentality, no matter who the coach is and style is. So that's kind of what I want because I'm I
can get behind that.
Yeah.
I don't think, next question, do you think Lutz has a timeline to have a new coach hired? I don't want to get into the hat conversation yet. The season's not over. Let's get into that right after the season. But I think the timeline is before camp starts next year. And if there is a new coach hired from outside of the system, I think he'll look to have that in before December when you have those organizational things that occur of the super draft and all those decisions in the offseason. So I look for a new coach. I would guess by December 1st. I'll just throw that out there.
I like it. When does Perez's loan end, and when is he back with City next year? Is he?
He's back with City for training camp. He is under contract for St. Louis City. Loan ends this year. So once the USL season is over, he'll be recalled and he will join City for camp in January.
Do you think he stays with us? What do you think?
I think he will have healthy competition with Jake Girdwood-Reich. I wonder where Hackworth or the new coach would find his best position. And I think he'll be put to the test. Just like all of our homegrowns will with all of this increased quality up and down the roster. Caden Glover, Miguel Perez, Makai Joyner, Tyson Pierce next year. A lot of these young guns are going to have an opportunity. And so camp next year is going to be fascinating for a lot of different stories.
Did I just say, David just said that I said Poch is the next City coach? Did I accidentally say that?
I don't know.
Sorry, David.
This is one of those things where in the course of conversation,
split maybe.
Freudian slip. Maybe you wanted him to be. I don't know. You were saying that the styles that he's employing, the things he's saying about the U.S. national team, you want to see adopted here. You would like to see that same intensity.
Intensity, yes.
Mentality. I know we're running out of time, so I want to quickly cover City 2, if that's okay, real quick.
Please do.
Timeliness, because let's talk about this weekend series of events.
Fun one.
It kind of starts on Saturday, obviously, with the St. Louis City match. And I saw a thing on Twitter that was comparing this St. Louis City match to St. Louis FC. And it was a little bit, we were talking about FC earlier with the players for the national team. City is eliminated from the playoffs. We don't have that. City is offering through their new My City Plus and through the City app, 5% off purchases at the stadium if you use a payment plan through the app. So get your credit cards loaded, purchase things at CITYPARK through the app. But also they are preloading $10 for food, beverages, merch in the app when you purchase. So you'll have that. So they're basically buying you a drink, and they have fireworks after the game. So if this doesn't harken back to the St. Louis FC days, I'm not sure anything will. But just have fun that's on Saturday. So have fun on Saturday. Sunday is MLS Next Pro Decision Day, if I have my dates right. And it starts from St. Louis's perspective with a meet and greet with Klaus and Salio at the City Pavilion to sign autographs, limit of 1 per person from 2 to 3 p.m. It's on a first come, first serve basis, no guarantees. But if you're looking for autographs from those 2 players and you want to build the hype for City 2 on Sunday, show up and go get some autographs. I know my daughter's favorite player is Klaus, so she's going to be there, and hope she gets an autograph, because that's the kind of thing you want to see. You want to see kids there. You want to see the opportunity for those 2 players, those Brazilians who are so fun-loving on the field together, to just, I mean, you're going to see them smile and laugh for the entire time. So that's going on Sunday. And then St. Louis City 2, there's a couple of interesting things happening with St. Louis City 2. So on their next match, St. Louis City 2's next match is going to be on Sunday. It's their final match, if I have this correct. It will be, it'll be against the Tacoma Defiance Sunday at 3 p.m. So right after this meet and greet, go to the stadium, watch City 2. They've already secured second place in MLS Next Pro. They're guaranteed to host at least their first playoff match. You're seeing a lot of not just the stars of the future, but potential, we've got Super Draft. You've seen them play for City. You've seen them now play for City 2 and have high-level success. Watch them finish off their season. Go check out this team. Fantastic. That Sunday. So the meet and greet, the game, get hyped. The fun thing for St. Louis City 2 is going to be on October 8th. I think that is a Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. If you're not familiar with MLS Next Pro playoff rules nowadays, there is this thing called a choose your playoff opponent, where live on Tuesday, October 8th, the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference will each have a selection show that will air live on, I believe it's airing live on YouTube, but it might be on Apple TV. Oh, it's on MLSNextPro.com and the league's X and Instagram channels. So watch out for that. Look on social media. You'll see it. Tuesday, October 8th, the Eastern Conference Selection Show will air at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and the Western Conference Selection Show is at 2 p.m. Central Time. What this selection show is you have your pool of playoff teams. You have them seeded based on finishes in the regular season. The top seeded teams get to choose their opponent from the lower seeded teams. So it's not a 1v8 necessarily. We did this last year where St. Louis City was actually picked or passed up by Sporting KC2 and Benny Feilhaber, and we gave online all kinds of guff about it, and it was hilarious and it was fun. But this is such a fun thing where the standings right now have North Texas in first place, St. Louis City 2 in second place. North Texas could pick from any of 5 through 8, I believe. So it's LAFC, Ventura County, which is Galaxy 2, Whitecaps 2, or Real Monarchs. So let's say that they pick the Whitecaps 2, who are the 7th place team. St. Louis could then say, all right, we want the worst team. We want Real Monarchs. And they could view it from any different angle. So the fun thing is not just the fact that they get to choose their own opponent for the first match, but what do you think the reasonings are for that choice? And they do get asked, I think, on the broadcast. So there's this, the live factor. You'll have either Bobby Murphy, the head coach for City 2, or whoever might be the city representative will be there, but they'll offer a little bit of info on maybe why they chose that opponent. So that's Tuesday, October 8th for the Western Conference at 2 p.m. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. So the 1 through 3 seeds choose between 5 through 8. And the number 4 seed just plays whoever's left over. That's going to be fun. We have locked in the 2 seeds, so we're guaranteed to be able to be a part of this, choosing between one of 3 opponents. And that's fun. I mean, in a season where City's had all these ups and downs, like City 2 has been a continuous shining beacon of the organizational success that they're continuing to build with this new crop of players they brought in, the next generation of St. Louis City. This is just another fun thing on the road to the playoffs where City 2 will host a playoff match against the opponent that they choose on Tuesday.
And they're not in the first in the West, but they've been hotter than North Texas, who is first in the West. So they've been the top of the power rankings for the last several weeks. They're on a good ride here to do well in the playoffs if things continue to go well. They're definitely the team to watch right now. So
absolutely
go to those games. There's so much fun. And I got a special offer for that ticket, I think. So check your emails. You might get a cheap or free ticket. I haven't checked the details on that. But I look forward to filling that stadium up and maybe setting a record. I love when I see full stadium videos and pictures all over X after those games, and people are like astonished that it's a 2 team in St. Louis and they're getting that good of attendance. It's fun to watch. It's one of my favorite things. So
absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. It's been a fun conversation. Great questions, everyone. Let's continue the conversation on X. There's so much fun stuff to debate, and I enjoy you guys' comments. Let's keep it fun. Let's keep the hate out and just be smart and creative about our responses. And that's the good stuff right there. And you guys usually deliver. So thanks for that.
Have fun rooting on your club. St. Louis City season is almost over. City 2's ramping up for the playoffs. There's a lot to be excited about. The hope is bright for the future. Just enjoy. That's what soccer's all about. Just enjoy, have fun with your friends and family. And